Hey guys. Well, I think I'm starting a revolution. Um, I guess a revolution. I'm gonna be a rebel with my rebel quilt. If you've seen my first video, the intro to it, I originally called it my ugly quilt because I just started piecing together fabric just to get some endorphins flowing, and it didn't look good. So then I cut it up some more and it looked a little better, but it made no sense. Okay. And so I was trying to decide how to dress it up, and I'll show it to you what I've been doing. But before we go to it, I want to shoot to the overhead and show you this shape that I just stumbled upon as like a applique. And I finally made my decision of how I'm going to fill in the spots on my quilt. And I'm doing it with just crazy shapes that some of them make no sense. But this one in particular, I kind of like it. So here is the applique, and I actually created this by cutting up a bunch of scraps, and then when I cut them and then I like squared them off, I ended up having this cutout at the top, and that wasn't planned. And you can see there's like, still stitching from here to here. And that was something new to me. I've never quite seen that. But it looks like one of those fox emblems, the way it's shaped and how this is kind of small and these are like eyes or ears, or I don't know. It just looks really cool. And the way that I have the fabrics arranged, they're different. It's not just like having a strip and then cutting your strip in half and flipping the bottom half. It's not that. This bottom strip is in a completely different order. And it actually looks good on my quilt because I was going to place it on a black background. Like I have these big black blocks on my quilt that are empty. And so, having these two black is okay. It kind of adds to it. But having the cutout on top on the red and the gray works good against the black background. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. It just makes these like ears or points, it makes them stand out. So, but then it took me forever to replicate this. Like I couldn't figure out how I even did it because I was just stitching scraps together. And then I finally came up with a method, and I'll show you that method here. And I have instructions and everything for it. And it may not be the right way, but it's the way that I'm kind of doing it now. And it almost, when I get to the quilt, I'll show you when this part is up against the black background, it almost looks like a cat's cradle. Almost. Not really. Like if this were filled back in, it reminds you of one of those cat's cradle blocks. But the cat's cradle blocks, this black square is all the way down to this point, so it would be bigger. So it's a little different. So I really like it. And I thought next time, if I do make it, I'll try to make just a cat's cradle block instead of having this attached here, and see if I like it. But yeah, it was really cool. So I'll go put it on the quilt and I'll show you. I only have 2 made so far that are exactly like this one. Because the other ones I made, I had the colors off and everything. And before we go to the quilt, I'll show you how it's just a faux turned edge. You know, these edges are stitched nice and neat. So you don't have to worry about putting any heat and bond light. It's not a raw edge. It's just the faux turned edge. And I'll show you how I do that. So this is like got this cut so that I could turn it inside out. Basically, you take this and put it right side down on a big black fabric, stitch all the way around, cut a slit, turn it inside out, and then, you know, there you have it. You press it. And so this will probably just be blanket stitched on my sewing machine. So I'll go put it on the quilt and I'll show you some of these other weird shapes. I probably won't keep them all, but this one, I just love it. I just love it. Okay, so I just put that one applique right there. And so you could see all my black rectangles, the big ones, and then I have a little one there, and then a little one way up at the top. But I kind of wanted to fill in these black rectangles with something. So this was the original that I created, and that was the one that I just fell in love with, and I tried to replicate it, and I finally got it there. You can see all these other ones are incorrect. This one is incorrect at the bottom here. I did my cutout where the black was, you can see. And the cutout was supposed to be where the red and gray was. So that one, I may or may not keep it in there. I'm not sure. And then up at the top, I experimented with some other techniques, and it's totally wrong. Like you could see the 2 blacks are on the end, and the red is diagonal to each other. And I just think that color order is boring. And I messed up the top. I made a lot of mistakes on it. So I probably will take that one out for sure. And then these 2 small ones, I just made so many mistakes on them that I had to keep cutting them smaller and smaller. And you could see both of them are cut out incorrectly. They're cut out where the black is. Oh yeah, this is the one where I decided to use a skinnier strip of the black, but it totally threw everything off. You could see where my cutout is on the top. It's not cut out perfectly at the seam line, and you could see the point down at the bottom. The seam line is not on the point. So I don't know. I think I might keep those in just because they're small, but I can't decide. And then this one is the excess fabrics of when I trimmed out this one, because you have to cut the corners off. And when I cut the corners off, I ended up with these little shapes. And like you could probably see there's like a triangle here with a little triangle in the corner. And so there's 8 of them here. And so I just sewed all those together. Now this right here is a piece of square, okay, that I just put on there because I may end up cutting out that top, you know, just to make it look interesting. I don't know. This one's not done. There's nothing on the back of it, so it'll get smaller. And I like the way that they extend. I like the way that they extend out beyond the block because I think that looks really radical and rebellious. And so you'll notice I made this one bigger than the original. And I like the way this thing extends up. I just was sewing a bunch of scraps together and I came up with this shape and I was like, it almost looks like a garden entrance or I don't know, house or cathedral or something. And I may keep it in here. I don't know. I can't decide. And I was going to put some shapes in these skinny rectangles, but I thought that would just be too much work. So yeah, I think I'm going to make at least one more to replace this one. And then I'll decide about this one and then these 2 small ones. And like I said, I have to finish that one, but yeah, it looks a little funky, you know, a little crazy. And, you know, I thought about how this one also extends up beyond the black. That one looks okay because the black still shows up as it extends into this red block, but the one at the top doesn't because the black is at the top. And if I turn it upside down, it doesn't look right. And if I lift it up to go into the gray strip above it, it doesn't look right going up into that border. So yeah, I'm not sure about those. Not sure. But I can't believe how many times I made the mistake of cutting it on the wrong side. 1, 2, 3. And then I think I have another one where I did that. Oh no, this one is just like that other one where it's on the end. So I already took that one down. So it's kind of like that one. Yeah, I'm not sure why I kept that one up. And I think maybe because this one was smaller and that one overlaps a little. So maybe you could see the black point, but I'll probably take that one down. But I kind of like it. And the more I got used to accepting the fact that things don't fit and things are a little strange, I started feeling better, like less quilt anxiety, you know. Because if you stop being a perfectionist and OCD, sometimes that's healing. And yeah, so I'm kind of, I feel like I don't think I'm the first one to do this, but for my own self, I'm starting like a new phase or a revolution where I'm just gonna say no more rules and stress-free. I remember when I was really OCD and I used to walk up the stairs and I'd see a piece of lint on the carpeting and I'd pick it up and then I'd put it back down and I'd say, no, Lisa, this is part of your therapy. You don't have to be so OCD. And so this reminds me of that, where I'm just going to overlap and, you know, maybe I should accept these with the black at the top. Maybe that's part of my therapy too. But I don't know about this one with them both on the side. That kind of, I don't know if I could do that. And then even keeping this one in here, being different than the foxes, and this will be different than the foxes. You know, that's a little radical. So this quilt went from being called the Ugly Quilt to the Broken Pixel Quilt to now it's called the Rebel Quilt. And I may even put a label on the back, the Rebel Quilt by WeQuilt Studio. All right, well, let's show you then how I made that fox applique. Okay, so I thought I would lay out the strip sets in relation to where I'm placing them on the fox applique, because it can get really confusing when you end up sewing these together and then applying them to the fox. So what you'll see is I have 2 sets of strip sets here. So underneath I have, long strips as well. But this is going to be our first strip set for the top row. And then this is going to be our second strip set for the bottom row. Because I've created this now several times and I keep messing up my order of colors. In fact, the last one that I made, I cut out this opening here on the black and the beige, and it just doesn't look as good against my black background of my quilt. Because on my quilt top, as you know, I'm filling in a big black rectangle with these appliques. So I have to really be cognizant this time that I am placing everything correctly and cutting out my little L shape on the right side as well. So I laid it all out, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put these together in the order that I'm going to be stitching them. So I'm just going to move this down a bit. And so this is going to be first, second, third, fourth. So I'm just going to place the first on top of the second, on top of the third, on top of the fourth. And then I'm going to carry them over to the machine like that. So we're all fanned out, first, second, third, and fourth. And so the first one, I'm just going to put it to the side. It's going to go on like that. And I could actually keep this up here if I you know, just to make sure I don't make a mistake. And I'll just keep it beside me to remind me because I need that. So this is the first one, and so I'll take the second one because they're going to stitch here and flip it over. Now, my strips are, I'm only making one unit, and I'm going to cut it to like basically 4.5 and 4.5 when I'm all done. So these are about 10 inches long, just to give me some leeway. Technically, if I'm going to go 4.5 and 4.5, they should be at least 9, you know. So I tried to make them about 10 inches in strips. If you want to make 2 units out of this strip and the other strip, you'd really want this to be about 10 inches. So anyways, so I always like to line them up then in with the side oriented to how I'm going to stitch it. So this is the side, it's on the right. So I'm good to go. And I'm going to line up the tops. That'll be my system to basically try and line up the tops, even though I'll probably be trimming the tops. And I already have my feeder in. Do a needle down. And if I didn't mention it already, I'm using So Fine 50 weight polyester thread. And I'm also using a stitch length of 2.0 just to make sure that, you know, because I'm going to be cutting things and I just don't want it to unravel as easy. Usually I use 2.5 for certain things, most things. But since there's a lot of subcutting going on, I went down to 2.0. And then when I'm like halfway through this, I check it and readjust it to make sure I'm even. And also, I'm not sure if I mentioned, but this fabric was starched before I cut it, because you never want to starch it after you cut it, because then, you know, it can shrink. So here's 3 and 4. So we're going to take 3 and put it off to the side a little bit, and then take 4 and put it over, because remember we're going to be stitching down this line. So I'll try and line that up as much as my finger will stretch, and I'll let that go for a few stitches and then feed it in. And then you can kind of see how my thumb is where I, you know, matched it up to. And then when I get down to that point, I'll just adjust my layers and keep going. Now I can go ahead and just keep chain stitching the other unit, because remember I have my applique to keep looking at. So this is the bottom. These are the bottom colors. And so here is 1 and 2, and they're going to be stitched here. So we'll go ahead and take 2 and put it over 1. Remember, this is all right sides together. Move this one out of the way. I'll let that stitch off again a little bit more than that. Make sure I'm still matched. Okay. And here's 3 and 4. So we'll move 3 off. Remember, we're stitching here. And so we'll put 4 right side down on top of 3. Just down here. Okay, so now I have 4 pieces, and I have to make sure now that I really keep things in order. So these 2 are the bottoms. So I'm gonna leave them together for a minute and just cut up here. So my bottoms are still together. I'm just gonna put them aside for a minute. I'm just kind of putting them off to the side here. I think you might be able to see that. Maybe not the black. So, oh, this black thing is in the way, my light. I changed the way I do my light. So here's my 2 bottom pieces. So then I'll grab the 2 tops and then I'll cut them. And remember, this is 1 and 2, and flip it this way and flip this one this way, and now we'll see 1, and then we'll unfold it, and 2, and then this one is 3 and 4. And I also made this off camera just so you could see also. It makes it a little bit easier for me because this is the way we're going to be pressing as well. It has arrows, but it also has the order on it. I know my bottom strip is kind of narrow, but this is the top and this is the bottom. So my order is correct, and I'm not going to press or hand even, I'm not going to finger press the seams yet, so I'll just save that for later. So I'm going to take 3 and put it on top of 2, right sides together. Okay. I'll come off the starter a little bit. Readjust. Okay. And I can go ahead and do these two now as well. I might as well. So I'll go ahead and I'll clip them apart. So this is 3 and 4. So I'll turn it over. That's 3. Here's 1 and 2. Turn it over. So that's 1. And I'll just open them up. And I'll open 3 up. If I can get it open. And again, I can check my order. So this is my bottom. And it looks correct. And I mean, if you look the way that the seams are pressed, we could follow the arrows now, and I could, you know, it shows the seams pressed to the left, and since the red is on top, my seams are going to the left, you can see, and I could finger press that, but it's too crowded with the view of the video, so we'll do all this when we're all done stitching. So this is my seam line, so I'll take 3 and put it right sides together on top of 2. Oh, this is where the black is on the bottom. I could flip it around, but I don't want to get confused. So I'm going to leave it up and just try my best to match that up. Looks like I didn't have enough starch on the black and a lot of starch on the beige this time. Yeah, I can't get that. Isn't that something? If I would have pressed my seams open, I think it would have, or finger pressed them to one side, it would have been easier, I think. But yeah, that's something. I can't get that. And it's so hard to see that. That might be crooked up at the top too. I've been known to stretch it. So I'm going to let this one stitch a few stitches. And we're going to trim the top before we cut this to size. I think we're good. Okay. So now we have our top here, all 4 pieces, and our bottom. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to finger press the top first. And I think I'm going to do it on the overhead. One sec. Okay, so I'm going to try to spin these little directions around so they're like facing the camera. And this is our top, and you know, this row is our bottom. And then here is our top. Not sure I could get it all in. Let's see. So when I did this the first time, because I'm actually interrupting the video, believe it or not, and I'm redoing this pressing, because when I did it the first time, I pressed, say, all of these seams to one side, and then on the bottom one here, I pressed all the seams going, you know, the opposite way. And I couldn't spin my seams then when I attached them together. And I finally realized it's because these seams have to be pressed to alternate direction in order for you to be able to spin the seams. So think of it as like when you do a 4-patch with a light and a dark, and you always press to the dark, or you're doing a 9-patch with a light and a dark, and you always press to the dark. Well, that's because the dark is the alternate color, but we don't really have that light, dark, light, dark. I mean, our ordering is just, strange. So we have to say, instead of press to the dark, we have to say press to the alternating sides. Okay, so I have these 2 items here just to make sure that I don't get confused and I don't use the words left and right as far as pressing the seams, because I have everything spun around so that it's facing the camera instead of facing me. So just to try to make it easier. So when you see these arrows pointing in a certain direction, I'm not going to say this arrow is pointing left or this arrow is pointing right. I'm going to say this arrow is pointing towards the weight, and this arrow is pointing towards the cutter over here. This is one of those little cutter things. So anyways, so this beige, the first one, as you can see here, this seam gets pressed towards the silver next to it. So, and if you want to press something, in a certain direction, then that means that that fabric has to be on top. It just makes it easier. So you put the silver on top, and you can feel it here. It's thicker. This is the high side. So this is the high fabric. You put it high up, and then you can slowly unroll it and finger press it in the right direction. Okay. So these are in alternate directions. So since this seam went towards the weight, this seam now is going to go towards the cutter. You're going to alternate. And you can see it here, and you can feel this silver is still high. So isn't that interesting? The silver is high on both sides here. So if the silver is still the high side, the silver has to be on top. So we'll go ahead and put the silver on top, and I think I'll put it on top this way because it's easier. So the silver's on top, and I'll slowly roll it because, this seam has to stay flat. I can actually keep my finger there and maybe press. I don't know if you could see that. I'm like pressing here and holding my finger there right here just to get it started. And then, could do something like that. So they just have to go in alternating directions. Okay. So that's finger pressed, okay, that way, which means the next seam has to go that way towards the weight. So, and you can feel whatever direction it has to go to, that's the high side. So if this black is the high side, the black should be on the top before you press it. And you can even do it at the iron, where you like set that seam and then it make it easier. I'm just finger pressing it because to me, this is easier, because then when I get to the iron, I don't even have to set seams or anything. It's just done. And you can do this at the machine, you know, when you're all done stitching it, or you could do it as you're stitching it if you don't get confused like I do. So these are done, and they're kind of getting belligerent with me. So these are done, and right away I'm going to take them to the iron because they seem like they don't want to listen. So I'm going to take it like this with my seams going in the proper direction here at least. I'm going to take it to the iron behind me. And they're still going in the correct direction. So remember, this silver one is high on both sides, and the red one is low on both sides. So, and then the black is high again. And this is low. So this is low, high, low, high. So everything is kind of alternating if you think about it. So I'm going to actually, I don't know if I'm going to block the camera, but I'm going to just give this just a little bit of a tug to get this started and flat. And I'm not really pulling, but I'm just kind of helping it along. And there you go. Now I could just press. You're supposed to just press anyway. So when I was going like that, I wasn't really putting weight on it. We subliminally kind of lift off a little bit on the pressure when we do that. So I can use this just to make sure, like I could do one seam and then put it down. I wish I had like a wider one. Someone said you could get a butcher block and use that. I don't know if that's true or not. Because, you know, it's really not being left on there for very long. And then while that's cooling, I'll just go and finger press the other. Okay, so now this is the bottom row. That's that skinny strip here. And so it just makes sense then that if the top row, if this beige one was pressed towards the magnet, okay, then this seam here should be pressed the opposite way towards the cutter. Okay, so, and I can feel it. If it's going to be pressed towards this red, then the red is going to be the high side, and I can feel it that this seam is high on the red. So if this is high, then it has to be high when we do our finger pressing. So we'll put it over here, and I'll do the same thing. I'll get it started like that or something and try and finger press it. And I'll kind of hold it this way. Sometimes I feel like I stretch it because this fabric is so, you know, kind of flimsy. It's the Walmart fabric. I hate to say it, even though I've starched it. So the red, it was going this way. So that means then the black, this one has to go that way. And if it has to go that way towards the beige, that means the beige has to be the high side. And again, I can feel it. It is on the high side. So if it's the high side, it has to be on top. And we can just kind of roll it without, I'm trying not to like hold my finger there, but I don't know, I guess it's easier so that I don't stretch the fabric too much. Here I think I kind of made a crease. So, and what I think is going on here, I starched this beige fabric so much that it's like parchment paper now. So as I'm finger pressing it, I'm making creases in it almost, and I'm creating lines that are not straight. So this would be something that I probably would have to set the seam first when I get over there, because this looks like I messed it up. So anyways, so then so it was pressed towards the beige. The beige is the high side. So if it was pressed this way towards the weight on this seam, then this seam has to go that way. Okay. When it has to go that way, that means this is the high side. And again, I can feel the high side. So the beige has to be on top again. So we'll just take these straight ones and put the beige on top like that. It's just easier. And then I'll try to do a better job. I can't. This beige is too unruly. I have to put my finger there and kind of help it. I might have to do it all the way down so I don't make that pleat like in it. Kind of. It's really stubborn. Okay. So we've got these two seams are both pressed towards this cutter. So as I look at them, they're both towards the cutter, these two, and this one is the opposite, towards the magnet. And that's how you would do a 9 patch. And if you forget to do this, because I did it wrong the first time, I pressed them all one way and then the other one the other way. If you forget, maybe I should keep that part in my video after this segment and show you how I had to spin my seams when I did this seam here. It was really weird how I had to do it. Some of them were open and some of them were spun, but only half of them were spun. It's like I invented this new thing, which I'm sure has been around for centuries. But maybe I'll leave that segment in, but boy, it'll be a long video. It's a long video already. So anyway, so we'll take this to the iron and I'm going to pick it up, you know, just like that with my fingers on the seams, and I'll bring it over to the iron. But I'd like to kind of stick with the same orientation that I had over on the overhead. I think this was the way it was. Whereas this is the top. Okay, beige, silver, red, black. And then this was the bottom. The red, black, beige, silver. So this is the one that we need to press. Yeah, that's not going to help us. I guess I just can't get it all in. You know, along with the instructions and everything, unless I kind of put that there. Now, these here, the top ones, you notice this arrow here is facing the black on the top one. That means that this is the high side. So if this black is high, then this one that's going to stitch to it is low. So we got high here, low, high, low. So if this is high, then this is low. Low, high, low, high. And so just like before when we said that the two grays or silver were high on both sides, well, that's what the beige is. It's high on both sides. And isn't it interesting how they're catty corner? But so the beige is high on both sides. These are low, and then this is high. I mean, it only has one side with a seam. This side doesn't have a seam, right? And at the same token that the red is low on both sides, the silver would be low on both sides, but the black is instead. So I guess because there are center ones, just like these two were high and they're catty corner or diagonal to each other, then these two are also the same. They're both low. And then, you know, whatever these two are, then their neighbors are opposite. So it can get very confusing. Just remember to alternate, and whatever you start with on the top unit, if I start high on the top unit, start low on the bottom unit. In other words, this is pressed towards the beige so that this remains low. So we'll go ahead, and my iron's blinking. I should have been, had my iron ready this whole time while I was talking, sorry. So I'll go ahead. I did already finger press, but remember I was saying how I kind of screwed up the beige. I am gonna, now since the beige is high, that means if I want to set the seam on it, you know, it has to be high when I set the seam. In other words, up or high, higher than the silver for me to set this seam. I my iron's not hot. I used too much starch because the last time I did it, this was so flimsy, it was causing me grief. But now this time I overdid it, so that wasn't good either. So let's see if I can set that seam. So we know when whatever is on top, that's the seam. You know, this becomes the high side. You know, if you want to press to this seam allowance, then you put this on top and set the seam if you do that. Like I said, some people don't. Boy, it sure is taking its good old time. And it really, I should be on the other side to get this. I'm just going to kind of like crease up against it. I do that sometimes. I'm just kind of like running my iron along there to train it, and then I can flatten it. But that's just that seam. This seam also has to be high. So again, I'll put this on top. I think I'm choking because I have green tape there, and I keep running my iron on the green tape. That's highly toxic, I'm sure. Let me go on the other side. So I'm trying to get that to relax without disturbing the one I just did. I'm just going to turn it around to make it easier for me. And again, I'm going to just try to ride along that to just kind of coax it and soften it a little. And then I'll start to, sometimes you can do that with stubborn fabric. So now my beige is done both sides of it. So if this was high, remember, let me make sure I'm in the right orientation. It actually was this way. So this was high, this is low, this has to be high, meaning the seam has to go towards the red, and it already is. So I'm just going to go right over it. The red wasn't too stubborn. It was just that beige. And you could see this is bub puckering here. So obviously I stretched the fabric. You probably wouldn't have this issue if you used good motive fabric, you know. I love Moda. I love it more than any other fabric. So there you go. And you'll notice then that, let me just try to set these. I don't know. It's not really doing much. But when we go to set these seams, you'll see that, or not set them, but when we go to sew this set to this, these are going out, and then the beige are going in. And of course, they'll be right sides together. So, you know, it would be like this. And so the red is facing out and these are facing in, and they'll just nest up really nice. You know, we have to trim everything, but so those will nest. I know it's hard to see that. There, and there. They're not trimmed. I'll show you then. And then this, the last one here, these will nest here. Because these are facing, you know, that way. This one's facing that way. So now that our seams are done, I don't really need this anymore. I can, actually it would be that way, and that would be that way, and that's how it would be. Okay. But I don't really need this diagram anymore. I'm just going to go grab the applique again, the finished one, and we'll just use that as our guide. So this is the smaller one. And so you can see here's our top row and our bottom row. And this matches it as well, but you know, it's just not as easy to understand as this. So we're going to go ahead and we'll start with the top, and we're going to trim it up, and we're going to, you know, straighten up this edge, and then we're going to cut 4.5 inches off, and then another 4.5. That'll give us 2 tops, because this whole both of these units are going to give us 2 appliques. So, and that's nice too, because then we can make that one spinning block. We can make a full spinning block out of 2 10-inch strip units. Okay, because just one strip unit, if I just did 2 4.5s like this, a 4.5 and a 4.5, I'd only get half of that other block. I'll show you. So this block here is when you do you know, a top and a bottom, 4.5 and a 4.5, you only get 2 sides. Like you can see, you know, you'll get 2 sides from just the 2 4.5s. And then you'll get 2 more sides if you do it again. So, because you can see these 2 are exactly the same and these 2 are exactly the same. But, you know, one side is, these are all are 2 different colorways. You know, one represents the top and one represents the bottom. So, but if you didn't want to make this, then by all means, you know, whatever you want to do. So anyways, so that's that block. And the other thing, I'm going to put this bottom piece aside and we'll just work with the top. Okay, this top. And I don't need these landmarks anymore, so I'll go put those off to the side here. So I'm a lefty, so I do have to spin this. I'm going to trim off this side just to make it square, and I'm going to line up one of the lines on here with one of the seam lines, you know, instead of the edges. So I'll just use the green part of this. And I should have plenty of leftover. Okay. And then I'll trim 4.5. You have to turn it, you know. Well, I do. I'm not ambidextrous. 1, 2, 3, 4.5, because I almost cut it wrong the last time I did it. And again, I am going to line up a line on here with a seam line here. I could do the black lines or the green, whichever is easier. And I don't know about you, but whenever I cut, I always make sure that my mark is on the fabric. That way, it gives me more fabric. You know, if you have the line just on the edge, then you get less fabric, you know. So that's 4.5 there. And then we'll do another 4.5. You could see your marks up there as well. And I'll have a little bit extra for just practice or whatever you want to use it for. And I don't go fast when I cut. I'm a big baby. I'll put this top piece aside for later. And while I have this, I'm just gonna trim it up just so I could use it for practice, like I said. That's how I figured out I was putting my seams in the wrong direction. I played with my scraps and I was like, oh, duh, it's just like light and dark, you know. So this is our top. We'll put this aside for a minute. And then this is our bottom, and I'm going to take this to make sure that I have it, you know, still correct. I'm always checking. So I'm going to spin it again to trim this. I really took a sliver off of that. Okay. And 4.5. That's good enough. So 4.5, check it again, Lisa. Okay. So I'll just put this one with the other. And we'll do one more. I'm going to go with it. Okay. So we'll keep that one, and I got one edge. Now is the fun part where all our hard work with our seams is gonna pay off. Okay, so that's the bottom. And there's our top. Okay. And so I think I'm gonna spin the mat so that you can see the seams, how they're nesting. So I'm just going to take this bottom, because we're going to stitch here, and I'm going to put it on top, and then you can see our seams. We'll start in the center, and we'll just since this is the high side and I have to like push it this way, I'm gonna hold the bottom piece with my other hand here on the low side, so that I can just take this one and like slide it and lock it in. So it's like whatever is the low side, that's the one you want to grab with your thumb and other finger. So I'll lock that in. I'll just lock this in, and you can come down here and kind of lock the bottom somewhat, just to make sure you're on the same page. And you'll want to put a pin in right away so you know what side you're stitching. For me, since I'm a lefty, my pins point to the side I'm stitching. Now a righty will be the opposite, because they'll put their pins in like this or whatever. I can't even do it. So their pin head is facing their stitching line, I think. So yeah, so anyways, I'm gonna snap that in just for the heck of it. And then you can go either, either way, this way or that way. And this one is locking in really nice. This is the low side, so I can hold that with my thumb and slide it and lock that in. And again, the bottom is locked in. And I notice I'm putting my pin like on the seam allowance. And I like to stay away from where I'm stitching, even though I do remove the pin. And then we'll do this one. And this is the one that was, it's giving me a little bit of a problem. I'm going to grab this high side because it's obviously my seam allowance wasn't correct there that great, because I had to pull it a little to lock it. But I'm going to work with that. I'll just put some extra pins on the fabric that's buckling, which is the gray. So this gray is like kind of loose, and the black is tighter. So the way we take care of this looseness is we just stick more pins. So we put a pin, well, this one I can just curve it and stick pins in to distribute it. And I'm going to actually put one in the center and then one on either side, and then that'll distribute it. And it probably, I should put them down closer since I have an issue, you know, I mean closer to this seam. So that took up all the slack. So now when I'm stitching, let's see, how would the camera be facing? Make sure, yeah. When you come down to this one, this seam could get caught, you know, it could. So you could put a pin on both sides for that kind of scenario. And then the same thing then when you get down to this one, you know, because that's going to be underneath on the feed dogs. So we got a lot of pins going on here. This one is going in the same direction as the feed dogs. So then I'll just put a pin here too. And most people don't even pin this much. Most people would put this in and not put even one pin in. So there you go. And now it's ready to sew. So we'll go to the machine. And you can check it again. Let me go back. You can check it again. So this is the top, and that's the top. And there's your bottom, red, black, beige, gray. So we're good. So we'll go ahead and now for this, I'm going to be trimming, but I don't really want to back stitch because the part that's going to get trimmed off is it's going to be like this. So this up here is going to stay. So this down here, yeah, I can't really show it, but it's going to come like this, and you know, we'll be cutting all the way to this seam line. So technically, let's see, it is going to stay. I could put one back stitch on this. I don't know. I guess I will. I don't like to do that. Most people don't because, you know, we're turning it, but we are going to be poking out the corners and everything. So I can't remember if I back stitched on these other ones. I don't know. But we'll go ahead. I've got my starter on, so nothing's going to get stuck in the feed dogs or anything. And it's on a 2mm stitch length. So I'm going to make sure that I'm in the fabric a little bit better, and now I'll back stitch. Okay. I think I took like 2 stitches on the fabric. So, and while I was talking, I didn't take that pin out. So when I get close here, I'll go ahead and take it out, just because in this one too, sometimes I feel like the fabric gets pulled to the left when you have pins, so then I kind of lift up and let it go back down so that this fabric relaxes, and give it a little pat while it's up. I don't know if you have to do that or not. So then even as I get close to this one, I don't wait till I'm by the pin. I take it out, and again I lift it, and see how the fabric did kind of move? It's kind of relaxed a little instead of being pulled that way. But now with these pins, I'm going to have to take them out right before I get up to them. I have no choice because they're doing a job. That's close enough. I'm like, I don't know, 1/4 inch away. I'll still lift up. Same thing here. I'll still lift up. Maybe go one more. And I can feel it's still tight and locked. And again here, while I'm on the fabric, I'm like 1/8 of an inch away, even more than 1/8, like 3/16. I'm going to do one back stitch only. Okay, and then I'll just... All right. And so this is where I learned from Mary Quilting, Joyful and Mary, that was her name. When you spin your seams, you don't want to go and take it to the iron right away. You want to take it to your cutting table or leave it here, and you want to open things up and spin them before you do any pressing whatsoever. But I'm going to go to the overhead for that. So here we are, and there's our order is still correct. And to spin these, it's so cool because, oh yeah, these I don't think I backstitched because I cut them. So how could I have backstitched? Because I cut these at 4.5 inches, which is really cool because now you don't have to take a seam ripper to open up, to release these stitches, not the ones we just did, but these that are perpendicular, because they're holding us together. We can't spin anything. So it'd be this one and then this one, and they're totally secure. You don't have to worry because this is going across, and you don't cut them or anything. You just release them, and these will release on their own. Like I said, I don't even have to use this to pick them out. So your tip off on which way to spin these is to look at these seams here. You know, which way are these seams going? Well, the red is going that way, and the silver gray is going that way. Well, look, I just made a circle. So it's already telling me which direction I need to spin. So this is these two are your guide. So if I know I have to spin them this way, I can just start spinning, and these threads will come undone on their own, because you know this was cut at 4.5 inches. So these threads will come off. They'll just get released. We don't even have to use the pick. And these will come off when I start to spin. So let's see if I'm right. So if I take this and I take my finger and I come around and I start spinning, okay, the black wants to go down, and then the gray, I'm spinning, the gray is down, and then I come over here, okay, the beige wants to go this way, but the black wants to go that way still, and notice they just released because these two are going in opposing directions. So, and if I give it a little bit more help, oh, now the black just released from the red, and now you can see that little four patch that everyone talks about. So now there's your four patch, and So the block kind of did it for you. So the only real thinking you have to do in all of this is at the very beginning when we stitched these in alternating directions, or not stitched them, but pressed them in alternating directions. You know, this one going this way, this one going that way, this one going that way, this one going that way. You know, they're just alternating directions. So this one's done. And you can use your finger just to press it, or you can use a weight. This is soft on one side, or anything. You don't even have to do anything but your finger, to be honest. So then when you get down here, it's the same thing. This seam is telling you which way to spin. Now remember, on this one, we were spinning clock or counterclockwise. Well, then this one, guess what? We're going to spin clockwise, and lo and behold, that's the way these two seams are telling us to go. So if I come around, starting with the black telling me what to do, and come here, and then spin around to the red. So this beige wants to go down, spin around to the red, and when I get to the silver, things are going to start releasing. If I bring my finger clip, there we go. I heard snaps, and there it is. So I just think that is so cool. It's just, it's so gratifying to, you know, finally have figured that out, and for everything to be nice. So just remember, alternating. Think of light and dark and pressing towards the dark. They're always in alternating positions, you know. So yeah. So then coming down to this seam, okay, these guys are telling us which way to go. Probably can't see the black as well. I'll start with this guy. So this guy is pressed this way, so I'll go this way. That means the silver wants to go down. That's great, because it already was down from the center, right? That's great, and it did that because we alternated. So we'll go around, and then I'll continue with this finger, and then as I come around, this one then is going to have to go the opposite way. So as I hold this gray one down and come here, now this snapping, unsnapping happens. I hope you can see that. This is probably in the way. But I came around and then it unsnapped here. So I didn't even have to use the thread ripper for any of this, because there was no back stitching there, because everything was cut. So then notice how these seams, I haven't really addressed them, because, you know, if I pull on this fabric to get this flat, I'm going to stretch it. Maybe I can pull where the seam is, you know, and maybe help that, but I'd rather not even do that. Just leave these kind of alone, you know, especially this one that had to be trained to go over. And then we'll flip it over and we'll just finger press it now that we have these done. So we'll flip it over, and these are already done. So then these seams, we don't even have to use our fingernail on this starched to death fabric. We could just use the palm. It's usually better to use the palm of your finger anyways, because then it doesn't stretch it. Okay, and so everything is done. Boy, I got to use my nail there. That's all messed up. I made a crease probably when I was on the other side because of the starch. So then we'll take this to the iron, and honestly, I mean, you could go with your iron, and that's what I've been doing, is taking the iron, the tip, and going 1, 2, 3, and then just doing that on this side, and then flipping it over, and then, you know, press it. So let's go do that. Okay, so 1, 2, and 3. So it should be getting hot. So I'll just take the tip, and I don't even, sometimes I worry about pressing too hard because I don't want to stretch the fabric, but I mean, there's a bunch of seam allowances here, so it should be fine. And if I show you that, when we cut off the corners, I'll show you that block I made. It's got the little pinwheel in the center. That's the one where you spin it and it's, you know, 8 little pie shapes in there. It's kind of cool. I'll show you that. So I just did that 3 times there. And then I'm just going to press this since I already finger pressed it. So, and as I go across it, I'm kind of lifting the iron. You can't tell, but I'm kind of taking the pressure off of it and then pressing down, because you know they always tell you to do that. I could see there's, look at, was that the one that was bubbling? I think it was. Yeah, because I didn't do my seam allowances correct on that one. But by the time you quilt it and wash it, it'll be fine. My iron is. So, and there you go. So I'm pressing, and then I'm going to let go to let the steam or the heat go up into the wood. I don't know if that's correct. Like I said, I don't know if I mentioned it because I've edited this so many times. So when this cools, then that's when we'll go ahead and we'll just cut our corners off, and then we'll cut our L shape out, and then put it to a backing fabric, and there you go. You're all set. So I believe at this point now, I'm going to go back to the original video where I said I didn't press my seams correctly, because now we're just cutting, and so everything else is the same. Yeah, so we'll just cut to the cutting. So we'll go back to the original video now. All right. So this is all cooled off. And I put it in this orientation, this sideways orientation, just so that I could make sure now that I'm going to cut everything correctly. And I'm going to keep this handy throughout the whole thing, throughout the cutting off of the corners and throughout the cutting of this, because this is where I made my mistake last time. So for this one now, this will be the first one, like I said, that I cut exactly correctly. So if I put it up to this measure, or up to the ruler, you could see that it's 8.5 by 8.5. So it's a perfect square. So when I cut from, I'm gonna cut this so that it's, let me line it up again. I'm gonna cut from this point to this point. So what you'll notice is when I do that, Okay. Notice the gap, you know, that I have here. It's not a 1/4 inch gap, meaning my new one will be bigger than this one. And that's really what I wanted. I wanted one that extends beyond my rectangle, my 7-inch rectangle. Now, if you wanted your applique to fit within your block on your quilt, and your block on your quilt was a certain, you know, width that you really wanted to stick to, you didn't want it to overlap like me, well then by all means measure the width of your block on your quilt. And if, say, like mine, say your block on your quilt, that black background on my quilt, say it was 7 inches wide. So you wanted your applique to have like a 1/4 inch on each side. So that's a quarter, quarter, a half. Okay. So you don't want your applique to be 7 inches, you want it to be 6.5. Okay. Well, if you want your applique to be 6.5, then the cutting of it should be another quarter, should be 7. So this horizontal line should be 7 when you cut it. So that's easy enough, because then you could just take a ruler if you need, grab this one. If you need 7 inches, okay, that's 3.5 here and 3.5 here, right? So just measure 3.5 inches from the center. So you could say put your 6 in the center. Actually, this is the, well, it doesn't matter, they're all spun. I'll just put it down a little lower. And then measure 3.5 from the 6 on either side and place a pin. So I'd go like, you know, 1, 2, 3.5, and I'd place a pin right there. Maybe I'd go up a little closer so I could be more exact. One, 2, 3.5. And some people like to use like a water erasable or heat erasable pen. I get nervous sometimes. I'll use it if it's not going to show, like if it's in a seam allowance. And then you would do the same thing on this side. So you would just count 1, 2, 3.5. So you'd be down here at the 2.5 mark. And place a pin. And so then in that case, where you would cut now would be from this top. So you're looking at it again like this. You'd cut from, say, up here to that point of the needle. Now it's not going to be a 90-degree angle, I'm sure, because a 90-degree angle here would mean we'd be coming to this point, because remember, this is a square. But that's okay. It doesn't have to be a 90 up here, you know, doesn't matter. No one's going to know. So you would come down here and there, and that's where you would cut. I wouldn't use this little thing, but, you know. And you can even see here how this is not a 90, because you've got this little skinny triangle in there. So my point being, you would use an actual ruler to cut. Of course, don't be dangerous. And so you'd cut there, and then you come and cut from this point to that center. And you would do that all the way around, from this point to that center, and then that point to that center. Okay, so that's if you wanted to stay within your block. But if you didn't want to stay within your block, then, you know, by all means, just make it easy on yourself and just go from this center to this center. This will be a 90 degree angle up here. I mean, you could even take a square ruler and do it in 2 steps. You know, here's your diagonal. You could just put it on there. Get rid of all this stuff. Well, you'd have to take these out. And you can line up this diagonal with your straight line. And with this point here. And it should line up there and there, if you did everything correctly. And then you would just cut it in in 2 swipes. And in that case, since my seams are, you know, a little uneven, and I have the skateboard stuff and all that great stuff, I would definitely put a weight on it. And then before you cut, make sure everything's correct. And then just go ahead, and I'll just use the rotating mat and cut there and there. And then do the same thing for the bottom. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to move this though in my way a bit. So back and then forward, and then I'm going to spin it a little bit. Up. I usually, when I go back on a corner, I'll go back, lift up, down, and then forward, because I don't like to chip my corner. But I forgot to do that time. So then you have these 2 pieces, and then these are your 2 pieces that you can then make another block with. So if you're consistent every time in cutting this, and cutting those strips at the 4.5 and 4.5, making sure you have an 8.5 inch square, you know, then these will always be the same size. And you can make a beautiful quilt just out of these, separate from this. Or you can make another type of applique, you know, for this quilt with these. I don't know what you'd make, but the sky's the limit if you're consistent. So then I would put these 2 together and stitch along here, and these conveniently match up. They nest perfectly. So what I would do is I would nest them right here and put a pin so I don't forget which seam I'm supposed to be stitching, and then just put that aside. And then we'll spin this around, and let's see, let me move this down a hair. Well, no, I have to move it this way to do the other corner now. So we'll just take this and slide it down Again, still lining this up. I can't tell if I'm on that black. It's so hard, especially with this. I don't know if I like these rulers or not, but I have a ton of them. Okay. Put that back down. And then back and forward. See there, I could just go back and slide forward without lifting because I don't have a corner here. But when I do this side, this is the one where I normally, I'll go back, lift up, and go right back in. It's just so I don't mess up my corner. And then again, these two will perfectly match up. And it's so nice because the coloring is so beautiful because it has all four of the colors and they're perfectly dispersed and they nest, you know, these will nest as well. But they're two completely separate ordering of the same colors. So imagine the beautiful block you could get. Now this is the first one I have. That's the right size. The last one I made, they were 4 1/4. The strips were cut 4 1/4, so they're going to be too small. But imagine if you had two more just like this. I can get those small ones. Let's see. So these here were when I cut them. I cut my strip set at 4 1/4 each. So I got smaller ones. And, you know, look at the difference in size. But that's what you would get. That's so pretty. And of course you can spin it so many different ways. Let's take this weight off. So imagine having a ton of those and having a whole new quilt, or just saving them for this quilt that you're making and have, you know, some of the blocks look like this and some of them are just black squares, you know, that you are putting an applique in, you know. So that's just an added bonus. So there's really no waste with this. And this is just something that I pretty much just developed as I was just being creative and started out just wanting to stitch something to, you know, like I said, bring me endorphins. So here's the one we end up with, and we just have to now cut out our L shape and then put it right side down with a black square. But, you know, here's the original, and I would suggest putting it on there to make sure you cut the right side. And you may not want to cut it this size. You may want to cut it a little bigger since this is slightly bigger now. I'm going to place a pin here so that I make sure this time I know which side to cut my L in. It's going to be this side, not the side with the black. So now that I know this is the side, I have the pin there. So let's see, I'm going to turn this now. I know exactly which corner I'm working with. And I'll take the pin out. And I think I said I was going to go 1 3/4. So I have this lined up with the center line, or diagonal, whatever you want to call it at this point. That's pretty good. So when I cut it, I'm not going to cut all the way to the line, obviously, with this blade. And I don't want to use my small 18mm blade because the blade kind of wobbles. So I'm not going to go up all the way. I'm going to stop and maybe just roll my blade a hair, but then I'll cut the rest with my sharp little scissors. So again, red and gray, 1 3/4. So then right here, I'm just going to roll it a little. And then I'm going to spin this. Make sure this is on the table. Okay. And then here, I'm actually going to come from here and try to make sure my thumb is not in the way. And I'm going to roll it there as well. So I didn't get as far there, I think, but that's okay. And then I'll take this off. And then for these, then I'll just cut with these sharp Fisker pointy scissors. I'll try to keep it in my hand so I can see it well. And stick the point right at the seam. Okay. Oh, this other one I got pretty close. Let's see. Put it point right in the seam. Okay, perfect. So there's a little something I can do with, and there it is. So that's my new little guy. It's big. It's bigger. And this is pretty long. Now it is going to lose 1/4 of an inch. So let me go grab my black fabric, and I want to make sure it's starched. Okay, so here's our black fabric, and it is starched. And I don't know what the right side is on this. I don't think it much matters. It's going to be on the back anyways. So we'll take this and we'll put it right side down, and we'll just put it up in one of the corners. And it's going to be really hard for me to see the black underneath, but try my best. That's good. And so I'm going to go ahead and pin it. So I'm going to be stitching this all the way around because I'm going to cut a slit in the back fabric to turn it. So yeah, it's going to be easy. So I'll just stick these in perpendicular to the edge. And I'd rather pin it than clip it at this point. just because I want it to be easy and flat, and well, it'll be flat with clips, but I just don't want to stress out with the possibility that it might move or anything. And I'll probably still remove the pins as I go, even though they're far away from that 1/4-inch edge. Oh, I got a mess there. All right. And we'll go in, give that a stitch all the way around 1/4 inch, even up here. Now with this, I can pretty much start on any side I want. I'm going to start with the light gray as opposed to, say, the black. And because then when I come around, I can meet up with this light gray and be able to see the thread. So I'm actually going to do a needle up and pull this out a little. So I'll put it like right about here so that when I do come to meet it up, I have this long stretch to gauge. And since I am putting it here, I'm going to take this out so that everything lays flat. That's pretty good. And we'll do a needle, hold this and we'll do a needle down. And then I'll go 2 forward. And then I'll go 2 back. Now I can let go because it's locked in with those 2 stitches. So I'm going to have to zoom in. And I know it's hard to see, but there's a notch on my foot that tells me when this edge is 1/4 inch from the needle. So to let me know I have to pivot, so I'll watch that. I have a couple more stitches to go. And then I'll test it and I'll just, with needle down, I'll pivot. And I'm a little off, but that's only like a 1/2 stitch. So I'm going to do it manually. So I'll hit the needle up button and then I'll lift with the presser foot, bring this forward and push it into the blade here where it's supposed to go. And the reason why I pulled the fabric forward is because now when I dial down with the hand wheel, the feed dogs are moving the fabric back. So as it comes down, I want to make sure it goes in like that same line here, and it is. So now I'll do a needle down and I'm up against the presser foot and we should be good. So I'm going to take this one out just to lay this flat. Make sure that's nice and flat. And then here's this notch. And again, I have like a 1/2 stitch, maybe 1 stitch. But like if I pivot, it's 1/2, one or the other. I could lower my stitch length and take a stitch and then go back. A lot of people do that. Let me try that. So on my machine, I'm just going to lower the stitch length to say 1.5, and I could pump it or I could do a needle up, needle down. Okay, and then I'll go back to 2.5, my normal stitch length, and then pivot. So I'm going to do the same thing I did over here or over there. I'll do a needle up, lift, pull the fabric forward, push it up against the foot. So we'll do a needle down. Now I know I'm going too far. Whoop. So here I kind of know it's when I get to this line is when I pivot, but I can still watch this edge to kind of meet the back notch, because the back notch shows when your back edge is a 1/4 inch from the needle, from this notch. But I can look at this line too. And it looks like, you know, I got a notch here and this. I'm going to go one more and I'm right on this line. So I should be good. Yeah, I am. Finally. Okay. And I'm forgetting to take these out to make sure this stays flat. Watch this notch. And again, I'm like a half a stitch. I'm going to go down to maybe just 1 mil. Because if I pivot now, you could see I'm not far enough. It's not even 1 mil. It's like a half a mil. It's really nothing. I'm going to go to like, oh, it won't let me go less than a mil. I'll go 1 mil. Oh yeah, see, that's too much. Now I'm way too far, so I did it again. So we'll go back to 2.5. I should have did it manually. Lift up, needle up, bring it back, push it up against the presser foot, dial with the hand wheel. I gotta come forward. A little more. Boy, I really overshot that one a lot. Okay. So I'll do a needle down. So now when I trim those points, it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to be able to get real close because I overshot it. I don't want to cut the thread, you know. So here it should be when I reach this line. And this notch, it looks like I have a lot to go. That is right on the line. Maybe I'm not, yeah, it looks like I have one more stitch, but again, I'm going down to 1.0 because I really feel like I keep overshooting. Yeah, I mean, this is feeding bigger than 1.0, I swear. I mean, it's not bad this time. It's really almost right on. So I'm going to let that go. And I'm going to, I'll show you in a minute. Okay. Oh, it's going 1.1. I'm like, why isn't it moving? See, that's why I don't like to do that, because then you forget to bring it back up. I guess I'll have a tight stitch over there. Take this out. Okay. Now this should be okay. again, when I meet this line is when I should check it. Okay, that one, and it's weird, it's like almost on the line, so I'm gonna lift up, I'm gonna bring it forward, dial it down, but I have to bring it forward, the fabric, a little more, because I want this notch to be on this line when the needle goes down, so I know I'm on the right, I'm still on the line. I guess I didn't really needle down. I didn't really move much farther. So last stretch. So I'm kind of pushing my fabric, if you've noticed, with my nail, because this was puckering. I was panicking. Let me lift up and get that under there. I'm gonna cut this. Once I reach this silver, okay, I'm gonna now watch so that I meet up with this and push my fingernail in there so I don't have any puckers. So now my needle is always on the edge of this inside left foot, so that's where I want this thread to be. So then I'll know that I'll match up. And I'm going to go past it like 3 stitches, because now I'm going to go back and forward 2. Whoops, I went 3. So I went back 2 and forward 3, and I forgot to put this back in. Okay. Okay. And so now with this, we'll go ahead and we'll just trim our straight edges, and then I'll cut these with a scissor. So I'll trim these with the ruler. So I can actually just put this ruler on to trim these 2 edges. Maybe. I don't know how well I can see, especially the black. So I'm going to line it up here. I know this is 6 inches. I could put the 6 on the edges and put this diagonal on this seam line here and this one. And I could see my 1 3/4 there. So I know I'm pretty close. So I'm going to take a weight. See, it already moved. It's really slippery because of all the irregular seams. So I'm going to put it like that, kind of, and then I'll hold my finger there. So that should be good. So I'm going to take the wider strip and I'm going to cut it all the way up, I think. Although I don't have a ruler up there, but oh well. Try to get as straight as I can. And then over here, shaved off a little scant powder there. For the square, I will just cut that with a scissor. And I think what I did before was, instead of using this one because it's so short, I used the longer, really strong blade, Smooth Cut, by that one company that makes commercial machines. And I'll hold it up in my hand and I'll kind of get the point there, but I never get it exactly on. I'm going to have to back up a hair. Okay, and then maybe from here I'll just, well, I don't know. I always wonder sometimes if I should, because that point's going to be cut anyways. I'm going to cut into it so that when we turn, there's no pucker there, because that'll be an inside. I'm going to do it this way this time. That'll be an inside, a concave. That'll be a concave point. And then to cut into that, I'm going to use my sharp blade because it's real strong at the tip. And I want to just slice straight in almost to the stitching. But be very, very careful not to cut the stitching. In fact, I'm going to go on the side of this stitching just for the heck of it. I'm going to back it up a hair because I'm nervous. And then get your fingers out of the way underneath. Snap all the way down. That's pretty good. And I often wonder about these two pieces because they're just kind of flapping, and I always wonder if I should trim them, you know, because of the way they could get tangled. If I would cut them, I wouldn't cut them this way. I would probably just come and lap them straight across, but I don't know, because then it might be uneven underneath here, like this will be thick and this will be thin. But on this side, you have only two layers, the silver, the gray, and the black, but here you'll have 1, 2, then the red, then the black. You'll have 4. So that's why I wonder about that. I don't know if other people trim it or not. Maybe I should trim it this way so that it goes with the line. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be in the seam allowance. How does this one feel? I mean, I can feel it over here. It's kind of, I don't know if I trimmed it or not because I don't remember. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's bugging me. If I go straight across, I did it. I said I wasn't going to, well, I said I wasn't going to go slanted. So I went straight across. We'll see what that does. So now every one of these has to be cut straight across and then slant in and in. You know, make these long triangles on the sides. So this one's going to be hard because my stitching came so far off. Now this stitch up in the seam allowance doesn't matter if I catch it, but I'm going to try not to catch any of them. I mean, that's not bad. And then this way, I usually spin it all the way around. I know it takes more time, but at least I can see. I wanted it at a straight angle. That's why I thought I should do that straighter, because that doesn't matter. I think I am. So now I messed it up. Now it's going to be harder. It just looks better. And then same thing here. And again, I came off, and then here, just a long triangle. And then I have to spin it around. Try to keep my point not like this, but in more so that I have more control. So I start like a 1/16 or an 1/8 inch away and then just slant. I guess I didn't go far enough on that one. So I cut off a little bit of that and it's fine. Now this one I can't really see. So yeah, I can't really see it. So I'm just gonna hope for the best there. I think I got it okay. Okay. So then, oh, I still need this because we have to go on the back. So here's the little square I took off. I'll just put that in my scrap bin. And then for the back, we want a slice that's like on this horizontal line, but just like 2 inches. So we want to start it here and it'll slice that way. But we don't want to pick it up, you know, we separate it from there, make sure it is separated, but we don't want to pick it up and start our slice in this line here. Because then if we slice it to get it started, the line will be this way. So we want to pick it up perpendicularly where 2 inches would start, which would be right about here. And that's where we make our slice. Try to make it perpendicular. And just make a little slit right, you know, in line with that point. Enough to get the blade in. So now that that slit is going this way, we can finish it. Make it like a little bit bigger, about 2 inches. It's going to be hidden. It's going to be plastered against the quilt and all tacked down once we turn it. That should be enough. Sometimes you just want to make life easier. I'll go another 1/4 inch. And so then when you go to turn it, you stick your thumb in and then you take, I always take this middle finger, I stick the thumb up into that point and take my middle finger and pull the point into my thumb like, and then turn it. And then I have a pinky finger that's so long, it's my own point turner, but I also use the purple thing when I'm done. I just put it up in there more. And then put your thumb in the next one, get your middle finger and push it all the way through that hole. And then I stick my baby finger in just to kind of get it started. I'll just keep going around my thumb. Push that, and then my pinky. Of course, if you don't have a pinky, you have to wait until you get your point turner. I mean, I guess you could put your point turner in there, but it's usually best to wait till they're all out and it's completely flipped to use the final point turner. Okay, I think I got them all. Yeah. So then you have most of them sticking out, I guess, and then turn it around and there's your opening and you can start just shoving it in and they should all then just go in. And there it is. And then I'm glad I went 1 3/4. I like that. I finally did one correctly. So then you go ahead and you could take your purple thing or your point turner and get your points really pointy. Now my dog chewed mine, but and this here should be nice because I came almost to the, you know, there's no puckering there because I just sliced almost to the stitching right down the next to that stitch line. So you do want to be careful with this. And it's kind of curved, so a lot of times I keep the curved part towards the good side. And for me, that side is also stronger. And that's the side you want to show instead of the black. That doesn't look so great. I'm going to have to poke the black a little. A couple times I've gone through though with the black. You don't want to do that. Okay. And you can kind of go like that with it, but mine's not very smooth to do that. I had to poke the black on that one. Usually this would be better to smooth out the seam, so I'll do that at the end. That one looks pretty good. Well, I don't know. No, it doesn't. Maybe that was good. Last one. So this is Faux turned applique. And now I'll take this square side and just kind of hold the 2 points and maybe push on the seams there, or push against the stitches to kind of push them out. I don't know if I did this one or not. Okay. And this is when you can roll it or not. You may not have to, you know, you roll your seams, you push that in and then roll this back and push the black in and roll it back. You just don't want the black to show. And, you know, push the black, push the black, and then roll it back, finger press it. So you just want to make sure these are flat up in through here. So we'll go and press it. And I'll just basically lay the iron on it at first because I pretty much finger pressed it pretty good. So I'm basically just gonna flatten it. So I'm not gonna press real hard at first because I don't want to wrinkle everything. You can see I've got some spots that want to take their own path. I'm going to go over here quickly around the edges, and then I'll concentrate on now kind of concentrate on each one and make sure that they're smooth and not puckered. Let's turn it this way. Going along the seams does help. Trying to put the point of the iron on the seam line instead of like where the seam allowance ends. Now I'll turn it this way. This little wrinkle here doesn't want to come out. And I don't want to starch this because, you know, it's already been starched, and I don't want to spritz it because a lot of times you could introduce, you know, stretching if you introduce water. I don't know. I get nervous. So I'm going to let that go. Because once it's washed and everything, you know, it's going to do what it wants anyways. But that's flat enough to go and put up on the quilt wall. I like it. Let's see how big it is, if it overlaps like I like. Well, I made the second one and I put them all up. And so the two recent ones are right there and there. And they're the larger ones and they're done correctly. And those are the only two, plus this original, that are done correctly on the entire quilt. So I kept this one and then these two small ones. And then I put all these other different things on. So this is the cutoff corners. So like this would be like, say, just the red and black would have been a corner that got cut off. Let's see, where would it have gotten cut off? Like here, say. And so anyways, and then you sew those two together on the bias, the long side of the triangle. And, you know, when you cut two sides off, or two corners rather, and then that's what you see, say, right there. Okay. So, and then I sewed those 4 pieces together, you know, say this one and that one sewed together down this seam. Same thing here, down this seam, and then sew those together down this seam. And this pinwheel is where I was able to spin that center seam to get it flat. So that spinning did work great. And this little looks like I cut out the top, but I really didn't. I just laid a black square on there to see if I want to cut off the top. Otherwise, it's a diamond. And that one is not made into a faux turned edge applique, so it's big. It looks pretty big. It actually is bigger than even these were when it's, you know, when these were raw. This is even bigger than when these were raw. So I don't know if I want to save these for a future block, or cut them out, cut it out up here so it looks like an applique. It almost looks like a fox, but not really. I don't know yet, because I put all these other extra little pieces that I've been, you know, had extra that don't really go together, that are all the wrong sizes. I filled them in on the small rectangles, and then I even put this in here and there. So I can't decide if I want to scatter these little pieces, because if I make them all into faux turned applique like the foxes are, it would be a lot of work. And then if I were to put Heat and Bond Light on the back and just raw edge stitch them, I don't think I would like that. So I might just take them off and just leave the big rectangles filled in. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I am going to keep that house or garden or whatever it is. I don't know. I just think it's wild looking. So yeah, I don't know what I want to do, but and I could even start making more of these correct ones, okay? Because I only have 3 correct ones and 3 kind of incorrect ones. I could make, say, 1 more of this incorrect one at this proper size. And then for these smaller rectangles, there's only 2 of them that are like that. I could leave them, or I could make 2 more small ones, or I could just put these 2 striped triangles in there. They'd fit, and they might overlap. I'll have to see. So then that scenario, so then there it is with just the foxes, the garden, and the diamond. So just it'd be pretty much almost done. I would just have to do the house and the diamond, you know, put the backing on them because all these are done. And then if I wanted to replace these two with those stripe triangles, that I'm not too crazy about. Those stripe triangles look stupid. So I would probably put the boxes back on up in there. They're not, you know, they'd have to overlap within the quilt though, because they are, I don't want them to overlap into the border, I don't think. But that's how they'd have to overlap, unless of course I made them smaller. But I don't think I want to make them smaller. So I'm not sure. And I don't know, does that look too empty? That's kind of radical and rebellious, right? The other fun thing is I could just take it to my embroidery machine and embroider a bunch of those black rectangles with the design. You know, that'd be a lot of designs, a lot of centering, a lot of crosshairs going on in those black rectangles. So, but even that, I think it just would be too much work, and I think it might ruin it. I think I like it like this, simple. So, love to hear some feedback. I mean, because it's really not that pretty of a quilt anyways. I'm just having fun with all this creativity. So let me know what you guys think. Should I just go ahead and put the backing on the house, cut the diamond, put the backing on the diamond, or not cut it, just put a backing on it and leave it like that? I don't know about that either. Oh gosh, this is too funny. And should I make another one for right here for this big one, since the black is in the wrong spot? Now here's the thing that I didn't even think of. When I do my blanket stitch, I could do it in like, you know, gold thread or silver thread, or do I have red or rust color? I don't know. And if I do the blanket stitch in gold thread, then this black that's up here, you know, cut incorrectly, it'll show up. All of these blacks will, even up there, down there. So I didn't even think of that, because I was going to use black thread even for the quilting. I have some black cotton thread even for that. That's why I was gonna just, you know, do the blanket stitch in black and then do the quilting on the long arm in the same black thread. But now, that is a thought, to use gold as my blanket stitch. Okay, well, I'm interjecting again because I'm really making them correctly now. So I'm starting to crank them out. So I have another fox. I made another pinwheel block, and I'm not sure how I feel about the pinwheel blocks being on there. I just kind of put them up there just to see. But I could take them down and then we can see how it looks without them. So there it is with just the garden up at the top and then all foxes, and that's it. And they're just in the rectangles. Now I have one more fox that I could make. I have it all ready. Actually, the strips are already sewn together. And I could put that fox there instead of the garden, but I'm still kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of liking the garden. I don't know why. It's just, it's so radical that I like it, but I don't know, maybe I should just put a fox in there. So yeah, I need your guys' input. What does everybody think? You're probably all screaming out there, oh my God, that's not a quilt. All right, guys. Well, let me know what you think. I'd love some input. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye. And I know I'm gonna press these seams all to a certain side. So on, say, the first one, I'll just do them all like towards the black here. So, and I'll just finger press that for right now. And then with these, see if I can tilt this a little bit. So again, this is how the colors go: beige, gray, red, black. I have to keep reminding myself. And my seams are going towards the right. So whatever fabric is on top, and like when you're pressing your seams to one side, that's the fabric that the seam gets pressed towards. See, the seam will get pressed towards the gray. So with it being on top already, it makes it convenient. I just flip it over and finger press it. And I usually hold it so it doesn't stretch too much as I finger press it. So then these two are going to go together. And again, I'm going to take the last one, or the second one in this case, and flip it over the first, the previous, I should say. And again, I'll try to line them up at the top. I'll just go this far. Okay. Am I still good over there? I think so. I'll just use this little one. Boy, that's a skinny one. Okay. And then again, with these last two are on top, and since the red's on top, if I fold it over and finger press, the seam is going to go towards the red. So whatever one's on top, that's the way it gets pressed. And so they'll all be going in the same direction. So notice I start from the center and go out. But I don't take my fingernail to the edge here, because then that's when I fray my threads, I've noticed. So now it's all finger pressed and it's ready to be pressed at the iron. The other two are still there, and so those are the red, black, beige, and gray. And so again, I'll go ahead and grab the first one and I'll fan it on top. And then I'll take it to the machine just like that. Okay. And so again, I'll take the first one, I'll put it off to the side. I know my stitching's going to go right there. Okay. So I'll take this one and flip it over. And I do like it when the black's on top, because then it's easy to kind of see the red one underneath. When the black is at the bottom, it's always so difficult. Oh, I had that flipped. Okay. And I'm not even doing a scant 1/4 inch. I don't know. I kind of stopped doing that because I'm not doing real complicated stuff. But I guess if I was really doing something that definitely needed special care and special matching, and the blocks were cut, you know, exactly, or not the blocks, but say my strips or my beginning pieces were cut exactly the way they need to be stitched, then yeah, I'd use a scant for sure. But if I'm allowed to trim my blocks, I don't bother using a scant. So here's 3 and 4. And 3, I noticed this part up here is not starched as much as this. And I don't starch them after they're cut. This is better starch. Boy, this is really thin. So I'll try to cut this part off at the bottom where this is really doesn't have a lot of starch on it. So 3 and 4, as you can see, 3 and 4. And we'll put 4 on top of 3, right sides together. Yeah, it's hard for me to see it way up there. But of course, that's going to get cut off anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It's almost like it's not cut right. Probably isn't. Or maybe some of the yarn broke off, frayed off. Okay. Okay, so now these, I'm gonna, I don't want the seams going in the same direction. So if I do the same thing and, you know, just flip this over and finger press, these are going to be going in the same direction as the top because I want them to nest in the back when I attach the 2 strip sets right here. I want this to nest. So these are going to have to go to the left because these are going to the right. So what I could do is I could just flip them both over and try not to get confused, you know, as far as first, second, and so on. And I think I'll be okay after doing this 100 times. So this will be my third one, and the seam now will get pressed towards the beige. So I'll flip that over, and this is the flimsy one, so I'm trying not to stretch it. I'll just kind of hold the gray and run my finger like that. Yeah, it's going to be harder for me. Okay, so now I can kind of go on top. See, it's really stretching. Boy, it's almost like I got a different color or something. I think I did, because when you buy the Waverleys, sometimes, I don't know, they, you know, the ones from Walmart, you buy a different batch, they're slightly different, it seems. So then again, this will go towards the red, and I'll cut that off in a minute. So I'll hold the black, and it is harder for me to finger press in this. Oh, see, I messed it up now. I better just do it this way, just kind of, because when I go this way, I kind of mess up. Okay. So I'm checking my order constantly. And so we'll take the last and put it on the previous. And again, I'll go cut that off. I went awfully close. Don't cut your fingers. I don't like that one. It's too little. So the black's going to be on the bottom. That's a bummer. I mean, I could always turn it around, but I don't want to get confused. So I'm just doing like whatever from my thumb to up here, whatever I can span on my table. It just makes it easier for me. I'll leave a little gap here so I can cut it easier next time. Okay, and you can see my if I finger press it, these seams are going to go in the wrong way. So we'll put this one on top, okay, and then kind of gently fold it to get it to finger press to the left. Yeah, that's hard for me. I guess I could use my right thumb. I'm still in view, and then I can maybe go down. You could see how I'm stretching on. So then these are ready, all ready to be pressed along with the other one. And I'll cut this off. Okay, so now because I made these strips, both of them, so long, I can get 2 units out of it. So I'm going to cut 4.5 and 4.5, and then I should have just some scrap at the bottom. So I'll take the other one first since it's more cooled off. Okay, so this is the first one, and I'm going to go ahead and just like I said, trim off a sliver. I guess I'll use this ruler just to trim it off. And I'm going to line up one of the lines with like the center seam just to be straight. Maybe since it's hard to see the black lines, maybe I'll use, I can see them a little bit through there. Because remember, I want to ultimately end up with 9 inches, 4.5 and 4.5. Let me just, oops, I just moved it. Just put that there for a minute. I just don't want to make any mistakes this time. So there's 9 inches. So I'll have plenty to lop off here. So I'll do 4.5 and 4.5, and that'll give me plenty for 2 more. Because I think I'm going to replace some of them that I put up there. Because I know it's supposed to be low stress and a rebel quilt, but I can't help myself. Some of them, I don't know, just a few of them, I'm not totally crazy about. But you never know, I might keep them. So that's lopped off, that's great. And I'm going to actually use the advantage of having a rotating mat. I'm just going to leave it there, and I'm going to flip it all the way around, and I'll measure my 4.5 from here. So remember now, if I put this back on, this is what we have. Okay. So, oh, I moved it. It didn't matter if I moved it. But because I'm using a ruler, I'm not using the mat for any guidelines. But just to make sure, we got beige, gray, red, and black, just like this top one. I have to keep reminding myself. So I said I'm going to go 4.5. So this will actually be the first time that I'm actually doing everything with the correct measurements as far as cutting. So I'm lining up my 4.5, but I'm also looking here with the center line. This time I'm lining it up with the green, which I'm sure is fine. And it looks pretty straight there. I am going to have to tilt this though a little, so I'm glad I have it. And I don't think I need my weights. I think I should be okay because I do have the skateboard material on the back of this ruler in 5 spots, because even though they say Omni Grip, they still move. So we're at 4.5. 1, 2, 3. Oh my gosh. 1, 2, 3.5. Look at that. Good thing I looked again. Oh, silly me. Lisa. Is that right? 1, 2, 3.5. Oh, God. Dummy. I thought it looked a little strange, but oh, and now it's right on my sticker on the back up there. So I'm going to slide it up here. Boy. I keep saying Oh, I'll just make another one and I won't make a mistake as I'm on my 10th one. Oh, I forgot to line it up here as well. Well, now it's close to the black line, so we'll just line up the black line there and the 4.5 there. That's pretty good. Okay, check it again. Remember, measure twice, cut once. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. All right. Slide my fingers up so the ruler doesn't move. And there we go. So there's 1 unit for my top half. So the seam will be like here. And then this will be my top unit. This will be another top unit, but it'll be for my second one that I do. So again, we'll go 4.5, and I can see it up there, you know what I mean? So it's like, come on, get it together, right? So I guess I'll just go with the black line again here. That's good. All right. And so there's my little scrap. So this will be for 2 units. And I can like make this pretty just real quick, just so I can have something to play with if I ever need something. I don't know, you never know. So I like to put it in my practice bin. I have a crazy little bin that I put a bunch of stuff in just to mess around. Sometimes you just like to do that. So I'm going to take one of these and put it aside so I don't get confused. And then the other one, now this is the bottom. Now let me make sure that I have my orientation right on this. So, okay, red, black, beige, and gray. Okay, but again, I'm going to just cut a sliver off of here. So I'm actually going to turn it around because I'm going to kind of put this one off to the side. I'm not going to use my mat on this one. I'll just turn it and do it. So I'll just put the center there and kind of line it up, this black line with the center. And 4.5, Lisa, not 3.5. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4.5. And I am going to have to tilt this. I'm really spreading my fingers so that I don't have to grab a, weight. So there's one. Okay. So I'm going to take this bottom piece and put it off to the side with the other top piece. All right, then. So here's our 2 pieces, and they'll be sewn down this line. So we'll go ahead now and we'll flip this over since this is our top, and we'll check it one more time. Okay, top, bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just flip it over, and you'll see that our seams will nest because we press them in opposite direction. So you could even just start with the center seam. It makes it easier. And I have so much starch that it's like a deck of cards, you know. And I can even nest down here and then place my pin. And notice how I'm trying to stay away from my edge. You know, I'm like a good 1/2 inch away. So I'll go ahead and nest this one. I'll just kind of push it in. As I hold this bottom, I'll just slide that in. And I'll just come down. And sometimes I do try to be cognizant and come in at a slant. And then I'll go ahead and pin up here. I don't mean slant the needle, but I mean when I go in with the needle, I try not to go straight down. I'll show you what I mean. So now I'll nest this seam before I do in between. See, I'm coming in at a slant instead of straight down, just so I don't disturb anything. And I probably don't need to pin in between because this is so heavily starched and I don't have anything ripply, but I'm just doing it anyways. And then down here, now this black is on top, so I'm definitely pinning. And I'm actually going to put 2 in. Oh, that one's bent. Are you guys like me and you love your glass heads so you bend them back? Because these are those thin ones and they bend so easily that I'm not throwing them out. I'm just, if I can bend them back, I will. If they can't be bent back, I don't. So then that's all ready to be sewn. And I always know which edge is going to be sewn because the pins are pointing to it, in my case, because I'm a lefty. But righties, the pins will, the head will be pointing to it. So we'll go ahead and stitch that. So again, I don't need to back stitch or anything. But I am going to leave a gap there, so it'll be easy to cut. And I can take my pins out when I get to them because sometimes a pin does pull the fabric in. So I can take it out, lift up, and just press on the fabric and go back down to make sure. Okay. And then this one, I'm going to just give it a few more, and then I'll take it out. Because I technically am far enough away that I don't think I'm buckling it too much. So now I'm kind of really close there, and I can lift and the reason I'm lifting and going down is just so if the fabric needs to get relaxed, because I can kind of see it's slightly to the left. I'm kind of pumping it. I'm going to take this out and then just press down. And then here too, I'm just going to make sure. Not everybody does that either. I noticed I probably make more work for myself. Leave a little bit of a gap there. Okay. And I'll probably should go to the overhead so that you could see it better. Normally, when you have like a 4-patch and whatnot, you can spin the seams so that they are laying flatter, because even if you just press open, sometimes it's a little bulky, you know, where a 4-patch is. And then especially with a pinwheel block, with those, you really want to spin this seam. But with this, I found that I'm having a bit of an issue. It seems that if I try to spin all the seams, it doesn't let me. And I'll show you what I mean. If I were to start here and say, okay, I'm going to spin this seam, okay, of this 4-patch. So pretend like these aren't here. To spin it, what you do is you just release the threads that are not the ones that were just sewn, but the ones that are in the seam allowance. And you do it on this side, and then you flip it, and then you do it on this side. Now you can't see the black. It's right there, but you can't see it. So like I was saying, you don't cut them, so make sure when you release them, your blade is, you know, you're using the top and not the blade as you release it. And some people just open it and it just naturally comes out, you know, all the way down to this line. So this one is freed, but then you just leave that thread there. And then the same thing with the black. Now I can't even see the black. So I'm just going to try to open that one. Even though it's not going to, I'm not really going to spin this, but I'll just show you what I mean. So there, I'm getting the black spread apart just by spreading it apart. And you can kind of see the thread there. Okay, so normally if I spun this seam, and I'm just pulling it by the seam allowances, not by the fabric, when you spin them, what you'll see is a 4-patch. And you'll actually see it, it'll look like a 4-patch. Let me flatten that for a minute so I can... So you can kind of see the fold of the red, and you can see the fold of the silver. Now these you don't see a fold, but they look like a square patch because these red and silver are on top of them. So that's a seam that's spun, and you can see the red is like still pressed in the way that it was pressed, in the way that it kind of wants to go, I should say. So, because, you know, we haven't pressed it yet, but that's kind of the way the red wants to go. And this is kind of the way the silver wants to go too, that way. But, and you think, oh, great, I can spin that, right? And so you just kind of press it, and then you move on to this one. But this is where I found the issue. When I got to this one, if I let the silver be spun, okay, this way, then over here, it can't be. Nothing, you know, it has to just stay there. And so there's all this bulk right here. Like it's not even, nothing is open. It's just the seams are all pressed to that side. Nothing is distributed. So then you're like, oh, well, this center is an issue then. It's definitely an issue. So then you're like, well, what if I spun the center and then addressed this? Okay. What I found is this one, the two outers can be half spun and half open. So I take the silver one and bring it over. And so it would be like an open seam. It would be as if I pressed it open, but only half of it, this half, you know. So because if the whole thing were pressed open, this red would be opened. So the red is still spun. So I'm like, okay, well then this will be half spun. So let me give it a finger press, right? And then you can even get your weight. I have one of these weights that I could put down or not. I can even turn it over. No, it's better there. And so then when you get down to the center, don't release these threads because we're not spinning it. We're just pressing the seam open in the center just like normal. Okay. So the center just gets pressed open. And, you know, you can put your weight there. You can actually use the weight. This weight came with, it's 100 grams. It came with my bobbin measurer. I have one of those scales. I think it came with the bobbin scale. But yeah, you can then use that there if you want. So that's pressed open. And then when you get down here, this will be just like this end, but instead of this one going that way, it's this one going that way. So they're opposite. So this one does get spun, and the way it gets spun is the black goes this way, and you could see the threads are already releasing. I could give it a little help if I wanted. Okay. So the black goes this way, but this red wants to stay open to abide with the center one open. So then that gets open there. And that's really all I have to do. I didn't have to release the thread on this silver one, to be honest. I could, maybe it would reduce some bulk if there's no thread there. You know, it's just a thread dangling. And it technically, you know what? It would reduce some bulk. So I am going to release it. I didn't even think of that before. Let me try and release it. But then by releasing it, you're training it to do what it wants. So maybe that was the bad move. So anyways, the black goes that way and takes the silver with it and the beige, because this half of this seam, this half gets pressed open and you can finger press it. So again, just like that one, half of it gets spun, the black is going that way, but this half is open. I don't know if this is correct or not, guys, seriously, because I'm not an expert with piecing, but I'm trying to learn the, you know, the ins and outs of it. So you know, just to make life easier and make seams flatter. Because I'm a long armer, I know what happens when we have those thick seams. And even though I use an 18 needle on my long arm, you know, it's a commercial grade Gamma long arm. It's not a baby. So I really want to be more cognizant of my seams. And so just like the lady on Mary Quilting or something like that, she hasn't even pressed this seam yet. She did everything here that she needed to do and kind of finger pressed. But then when she got to the iron, I can't totally remember, but what I've been doing, I've been just taking the tip of the iron and going here, here, and here, just holding it, holding it, holding it, and don't press these from this side. Turn it over then, and everything here is flat. And so now you can press this, you know, these seams, and they should all lay. And look, I'm finger pressing them anyways right now. And I guess you can do that. So then there you go. So technically I could go to the iron right now and just put it right there because everything is flat. But we'll go and do it the way I said, where we press, press, press. So we'll go to the iron. So I'll take the tip and I'll just go in there and just press. I almost feel like I don't want to like press it too much because I don't want to stretch the fabric either, but I feel like I'm on all this seam allowance, so I should be okay. So I'm not sure, but I'm just kind of training it for right now in those 3 spots, and then I'll flip it over. And since I already finger pressed everything, I can just gently and then let go. So when I came over it, I wasn't putting pressure on it, just so you know. And I really do like the fact that I'm not using steam. I'm glad I'm not, because I do feel like the seam or steam stretches out your fabric. I really do. I held it on for a little too long. But since my iron doesn't seem to get very hot, even though it's a 1700 watt, I've never damaged my fabric. So, and then I will now put this on, and I press it at first just for a few seconds and then let it go. Because also, I couldn't remember who said this. It might have been the same woman from Mary Quilting. They said that you're not really supposed to press because that doesn't allow the heat to come up into the wood. But I'm thinking, well, like maybe you should press for a few seconds just to press it in flat. Maybe, I'm not sure though. So I did that and then let go so that the heat goes up into the wood. And so once that's done, then we cut our corners off, and then we cut our little L shape out of the top. But notice I pointed here. Oh my gosh, that's not the top. This is our top with the 2 lighter colors. Do not cut your L where the black is like I did on my last one I did. Oh my gosh.